Let's move on to another topic, because there was a huge story in the United States today with the shooting of the congresswoman in Arizona. Lawrence Cannon, the Foreign Affairs Minister, has sent out a note of condolence to the Americans, and we'll just put up part of that. He says, attacks against democratically elected officials affect and undermine the safety of us all. And that is a very good point, something to think about, with all politicians. But Craig, you know the states pretty well, you know Arizona pretty well, and that whole gun culture, is it something that, that politicians here should be worried about?
Well, I don't think we have to be worried in the sense of us not having the same gun culture, but we also don't have the kind of sick, angry political polarization they have in Arizona, where, as you say, I've spent an awful lot of time. I have a friend there who's a moderate Republican, who used to be one of the Reagan leaders in Arizona. He's heartsick over the degree of polarization where they don't have political opponents, they have political enemies. So if you have an impulse, though, that's the difference between there and here, for instance. If you have an impulse to really get angry and want to do damage to someone, you can act on that impulse instantly because you got a gun.
Right.
And I remember going into a bar in a small town in Arizona, and there was a sign there as you entered the bar. Here it would say, turn off your cell phone, maybe. There it said, unload your weapon. And I thought this was an antique sign, like, oh, isn't that nice, the old cowboy days? And then I see people unloading firearms before they went up to the bar to get their drink. When I used to go riding in the desert there, which is why I went to Arizona a lot, everybody but the Canadians was carrying a gun. Everybody.
Well, Mia, we hear this kind of stuff, and we do think about our politicians here, but and you mentioned a case off camera of Dominic LeBlanc, the Liberal MP from Beausejour, New Brunswick.
Well, last week, I think it was a 62-year-old man in New Brunswick was charged with 2 counts of uttering death threats against him, and there's not a lot of information yet as to why this man was agitated, but he was apparently seen looking around for Mr. LeBlanc, and it just sort of reminds people that the politicians are putting themselves out there. They're public figures, and people say and do a lot of things in public, whether it's the politicians or voters, and unfortunately, sometimes your words actually do matter.
Yeah, well, that's to the media, Paul. I mean, what part do we play in this?
People spent yesterday either trying a little too hard to hang this guy's axe on more mainstream Republican figures, which I don't think there's any evidence for, or to deny that what he did had anything to do with the culture. But the fact is, if there's one place in America where it's the least surprising that a sitting member of Congress would get shot, it's Tucson, Arizona, because it's a loony place. And people need to spend less time contributing to that looniness and more time trying to find reasonable ways to make their point.
And on that point, the sheriff of Tucson observed that the kind of, as he said, the vitriol, the hatred that's in the air affects people with unstable minds.
Right.
That was his point. And I think, we all talk about the way American television has become so incredibly partisan.
Point taken. Okay, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Paul Wells from Maclean's, Mia Rabson from the Winnipeg Free Press. Thanks a lot.